everybody, it's Middle Aged Metalhead here. We're doing a retro review today with Ozzy Osbourne's No More Tears, which came out September 17th of 1991. So we just passed the 30-year mark on that Friday. It's kind of hard to believe it's been that long since that album's been out. I remember I was in 11th grade when that came out, and I was pretty much all into metal at that by that point. Ninth and 10th grade were, I was doing other things as well, playing some sports. But by 11th grade, I was just living and breathing metal, and there was a lot of different music that albums that were coming out. So that was in the fall of 91. It was right before grunge hit, and metal was still ruling the airwaves. But I remember when the single for No More Tears came out before the album. I just remember it having, like the heaviest sounding guitars I had heard at that point. And I didn't understand or know anything about detuning the guitar to, to make it heavier, or layering, or any of that stuff. And I had a friend who played some guitar, and he was like, "Oh, well, they just do, this and that, and well, and that's why it's so heavy." And at that point, I thought, I didn't even know who Zach Wild was really. I thought he was just some, I was like, who? I was like, how does he get that tone, and how is it so? I was like, this is like the heaviest guitar ever. I didn't even know how that was done, so that was kind of interesting musically. It helped me grow a little bit as far as the knowledge of, kind of how things work in the studio, and you don't just plug into an amp and get certain sounds. It doesn't necessarily work that way. But to the album itself, so they came out with a 30th anniversary edition. I think Tower Records has a vinyl edition. I'll put a link in for that. They're the only ones I think that might have the vinyl edition. And then there's a digital only edition. There's no, as far as I know, there's no CD version of it. But just some background on this album. It came out 30 years ago, like I was saying, and from what I remember, Ozzy was, and if you look back on it, he was, up until this album, he had a lot of success with Blizzard of Oz, obviously, and then Diary of a Madman, but that was in the early 80s. And then after the death of Randy Rhoads, he got Jakey Lee in, and Bark at the Moon was a pretty solid album. But after that, he kind of took a downturn musically, I would say. Popularity wise, he was, still pretty relevant, that as far as that goes. But, it was maybe one to two hits. And I feel like those, if you want to call them hits, were just in the metal world. There wasn't a lot of necessarily radio airplay that was going on with those albums. You had, the Ultimate Sin had some hits, had Shot in the Dark. And let's face it, though, that album was kind of a stab at semi glam. It wasn't really the Ozzy Osbourne that we all know and love. And then so, as I was saying, he recruited Zach Wild, who I'm going to put some pictures in there. He looked like this when they did the No Rest for the Wicked. He's not the biker looking Viking having beard having metal god that we know him as today. He definitely, this is obviously way before Black Label Society. And so, they toured on that. And then I'm guessing, Sharon or somebody in the Ozzy camp was like, hey, we need another hit album. We've got to figure something out. So if you listen to this album, production wise and just the songwriting, you can really tell that they took their time with this album. There's a ton of hits, and I haven't looked at the writing credits necessarily in a long time. But Lemmy Kilmister of Motorhead, he wrote four of the songs, four of the lyrics for the songs. So that was pretty big. And I remember, he wrote like, let's see in my notes. Obviously, he wrote "Mama, I'm Coming Home." Um, he wrote "Desire." I know he wrote 6 songs, and only 4 of them were on the album. But I think they used one of them on Osmosis afterwards, and I think Lemmy used it on one of his next albums as well, from a Motorhead album. Um, and I remember reading in Ozzy's autobiography a couple years ago, White Line Fever. He said that that was the most money he's ever made, was writing those songs for Ozzy, and that was like the biggest chunk of money he'd ever gotten, which is kind of cool, but kind of sad for somebody that's been in the business that long and lived the life. Um, and he wrote those songs, and that was the most money he'd ever made. But it was, I think the album has gone quadruple platinum or thereabouts. So it was it was a big boost for Ozzy. I mean, it was like a kind of almost a return to form, return to glory type album that he had in the early '80s. If you look at the list of songs, I mean, there's just a ton of songs that are played on the radio still. You have the title track, "Mama, I'm Coming Home," obviously a huge um, radio airplay song still to this day. "Time After Time," "Road to Nowhere." "Road to Nowhere" was on the radio all the time. Um, and the one song the one collaboration that's on this 30th anniversary was the one Lemmy written tune, Hellraiser, which I don't know if you guys remember, but back in the '90s, so when Motorhead had their next album, which I cannot remember the name of it off the top of my head, which one that was. Sorry about that. I'll maybe put it down underneath when I look it up. But so they did their version, Motorhead did their version of it for their next album, and it was also on the Hellraiser, whatever movie that was, 4 or 5, whatever Hellraiser edition movie that was also on that soundtrack. And they also had a video for it. So what they've done for this 30th anniversary, besides the normal like demos and a couple of live songs for bonus material, they have a newly made where you know they took the Motorhead version and the Ozzy version and took the vocal lines from Lemmy and put them into the Ozzy version, and then did they also remixed that version. I gotta say, it is really, really good. I wish they'd have done that in the very beginning. I mean, let's face it, Lemmy is not much of a singer, so um, to kind of have them, trading off verses and duetting, so to speak, on the chorus, it's really cool. It just adds an extra layer and cool factor to it. But they're also releasing a vinyl version, I think in October. I don't know, I'll put that date below as well. Um, but they're releasing a vinyl only version of the single that has the new version and the old regular Ozzy version on it on the A side, and then the B side has the Motorhead version. So that's really cool, and a little bit of a tribute to Lemmy, who's been gone for a couple of years now. As far as the remastering on this album, it's really good. It it sounds crisp and clean. It doesn't sound compressed at all, and it just reminds you of what a really uh, well produced and well written album this is overall. And also, you have Zach Wilde is really coming into his own on this album, like I was said before. I think this is really where he kind of put his stamp on the metal world. Um, he had played on the next album, Osmosis, but I think this is the one that everybody kind of remembers. And also the tour that in support of it, was pretty lengthy. They had some great opening acts. I think they had Sepultura. They definitely had Alice in Chains. And this is also, this lineup had Randy Castillo on drums, and Mike Inez, who not I think it might have been the middle of this tour or towards the end of it. He actually replaced Mike Inez in Alice in Chains. He became friends with the Alice in Chains guys during the tour, and they needed to replace Mike Starr because of his drug abuse. And so I think they called up Mike Inez, and he asked Ozzy, and Ozzy was like, "Yeah, why wouldn't you take this job? Don't worry about me." And Mike Inez is still in Alice in Chains to this day, so that's 30 years later or thereabouts that he's been in the band. Interestingly enough, Mike Inez did not play bass on this album. It's actually Bob Daisley, I believe, who played on this album, though, and I don't know how this works and I don't know the details, but Mike Inez actually has a writing credit on No More Tears for the bass line that opens up that song. Now, whether that's they didn't want to give Bob Daisley the writing credit on the song, I don't know. I'm not going to get into all that. That's a long, drawn out saga between him and the Sharon and the Ozzy Osbourne camp. Um, the rest of there's some good on this 30th anniversary. There's some okay B sides and bonus material. They've got two B sides that were originally on the Japanese singles and European singles at the time. They've got Don't Blame Me, which was a B side. That's a pretty good song. It sounds like it could have and should have maybe been on the album. Party with the Animals, it's all right. Nothing special. And then the rest, and I don't know, I'm kind of over these bonus, anniversary edition albums with all these demos and maybe they have a few live tracks. I don't really know. You can listen to those once, maybe twice at the most, and you're not going to hear anything that's like so earth shattering, unless it's something cool that has alternate lyrics or maybe I don't know, just the song in a different form. I think those are kind of cool, but when you're just hearing a demo, it's like, oh, okay, this is where it went. Well, yeah, it's kind of a waste. But that seems to be the norm with bonus material as far as these, every anniversary edition. Just that's the standard. So it's kind of where it's gone. But again, 30 years later, I think this album really holds up. Um, all the songs are solid. Again, they're all played on radio. They've got some deep cuts that are really good. Zombie Stomp is a really good song that doesn't get enough attention. Really, it's one of my favorite songs on the album. But anyway, for anybody that hasn't listened to this album in a long time or hasn't even heard it really, I definitely recommend checking it out. So it's Ozzy is at his top form, definitely up there in his top three albums behind Blizzard and Diary of a Madman. So, anyway, I should actually be getting the Nerd Deluxe edition of the Black Album today. It has shipped, but last I checked, it's not out for delivery. But so I'm going to be able to do the unboxing of that tonight, and hopefully I'll be able to put that up. A video up for that tomorrow if I can. That one's going to be pretty lengthy, so might take me a while to get it posted. But anyway, guys, have a good day. Don't forget, like and subscribe, and talk to you later. Stay metal.